My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era. Today, I have a very special guest chatting all the way over from London, UK. His name is Siv Sivasamy, and he is the new business director at Charles Square, as well as a co-founder and director of the Mayfair Collective. Pretty cool name, right? So Siv, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for jumping on.
Thank you for having me. I should say my full name's Sivathasan Sivasamy, but we all shorten our names because it's easier.
Yes, well, you heard it from him, and I'm really bad with full names. And yeah, my full name is Edivindan, but I go by Era. That's what most people know me as. So Siv, thanks for coming on. And the format of the show is always starting at the beginning, because you're obviously like a father, and we're both fathers. And a lot of things that we experience as kids in our childhood or formative teenage years really impact or has impacted where we are today. So maybe talk about, I guess, your childhood or formative teenage years, like I guess the key highlights that kind of explain why you're here today.
Right, where do I start? I guess I was born in Jaffna Hospital. Um, Grew up in a little town called Nelliari, just outside Karavati. But at the age of 4.5, we moved over to the UK. Predominantly running away from the Civil War. My dad had studied in the UK in the 70s anyway. He studied electronic engineering at City University, and then he came back, got married. Kind of traditional, normal story. He turned up to the village the day before the wedding, and his mum said, "Do you want to see a picture of your bride?" And he said, "If I see it and I don't like her, can I say no?" And his mum said, "No, you can't say no." So he said, "Well, there's no point. I'll just see her on the wedding day." And he told me once that his first question to my mum on their wedding night was, "By the way, what's your name?" Uh, but yeah, I mean, they were together for 40 years until he passed away in 2019. Um, but yeah, so we came over here. I think not that I can remember much. All I can remember of the plane trip was some really bad food. But yeah, I came over, only really spoke Tamil at the time. We lived with our cousins for a bit in Hounslow and then moved to Hayes, Middlesex, and my mum still lives in the same house. Kind of coming up to 40, yeah, 40 years later. Um, so in terms of childhood, yeah, grew up in Hayes, Middlesex. Obviously, in my younger years, English was my second language, so it's quite tough coming here, making friends. I think there's probably maybe five, six, seven Asian families in the vicinity and at the school, definitely in our year. Having said that, one of the other Asian kids in my year was my cousin. So, um, and I mean, we were the only people of color on our street. Whereas if you go to Hayes now, there's probably four or five Tamil families on the street, let alone other ethnic origins. Pretty strict Asian upbringing, stay at home, study. My dad did kind of get this penchant for the allotment, which I don't know if you have that in Canada.
I don't think
So
so.
it's a hangover from World War II, where they got everyone to grow their own vegetables during World War II to make up for food shortages. So you were given an allotment of land, a plot of land to outside of your house in an area, to go and grow your own vegetables. So one of my neighbors from across the road gave my dad a half plot, and then over time, he and his brothers slowly took more and more plots until at one point they had something like 7.5 plots. A plot, just to give you an idea, I'm trying to think, probably about the size of a 3-lane swimming pool.
So seven of
Uh,
those to grow their own food.
So I mean, half a plot was just full of strawberries. I mean, at one point was growing. They were growing so many strawberries and pumpkins and runner beans and whatever that they had an excess. So they were selling it to the local cash and carry shop, so that they could sell organic vegetables. And this is in like the kind of 80s, late 80s through to early 90s, when people weren't thinking about organic or growing their own veg. So I hate going into the garden now after having been forced down to the allotment all of those hours when I was a kid. Was good at maths, crap at everything else pretty much. Really didn't like history or geography as they taught it in school. But maths I found really easy. Ended up doing three A levels in maths in the end. And yeah, I mean that's basically my kind of early childhood.
I had a question. I mean, only because you brought it up with like the arranged marriage between your parents. People, that don't understand that or like that culture, they're like, oh, that's so weird. Like, how would that last? But I hear so much anecdotally, like so many arranged marriages. And like, I mean, there could be a number of reasons why some people just stick together that shouldn't be together for the sake of tradition and all that stuff. But I feel like I've heard so many marriages that are arranged just do so well, or like at least from a longevity point of view. Why do you think that is?
I would say there's two different things, right? So there's forced marriages where someone gets forced into something and they're completely not into it. But most arranged marriages, both parties involved are kind of happy to go into the arrangement. And I think also part of a reason why a marriage goes wrong is that people, especially in the modern age, see a marriage as two people coming together, but it's not. It's two families, it's two communities coming together. And the problem is if you just see it as the two people and the communities are at loggerheads, then you end up with people whispering in ears, and that's how a germ of a seed is planted to make someone see the faults in their partner, whereas they should be growing together.
Well, well, I think more so because if you think of modern dating, or like what I guess what I'm assuming we like you also went through, which is you date with the intention of, long-term partnership or marriage, but you're evaluating partners versus they never had that evaluation period, which is their families kind of did it for them in a way that I guess they put that trust in their families maybe. But
I think it's and look, the same thing used to happen in the UK. I mean, love's an invention that's relatively recent. You know, the reason Romeo and Juliet stands out is because they fell in love, and that was a weird thing, right? Juliet was due to get married off to some old lord somewhere, and she was 13 in Romeo and Juliet. By the way, my marriage was arranged as well.
oh, interesting. Okay, I did not know that.
So I met my wife 3 days before I got married in person, but we spoke for about 3 months before we got married.
Okay.
And I think our record on the phone in one day was 13 and a half hours nonstop.
For you, why did you choose to do that out of curiosity?
I think, look, I, I went through my younger years. I didn't really connect with anyone or anything, and I think I was just ready. And I think everyone that grows up as a as an immigrant has this split personality almost, right? This split sense of origin. Especially if you're an immigrant of color, because you can't blend in. It doesn't matter how many generations we get in, our kids, our grandkids, they'll still be asked where are you from. And actually, I forgot how to speak Tamil. So from the age of 5 or 6, one of our teachers at school told our parents speak to them in English at home so they can pick up English quicker. And because of that, we forgot how to speak. I'd still watch Kamala Hassan movies and Rajinikanth movies. I'd still understand it fully, but I didn't speak it. And actually, occasionally we'd be at parties and people would speak in Tamil about our parents or whatever, and think that because we spoke in English we couldn't understand, and then we'd go home and tell our parents everything we'd heard. Um, but yeah, I think I felt this need to reconnect with the culture, and yeah, I mean, when I spoke to my wife the first time, I could just tell she had the a similar kind of mindset and a similar kind of outlook in life. I think the other thing is most people Most people nowadays meet their future life partner at a club or whilst out drinking or hanging out with friends or at a dinner party. And you're not going to have those difficult conversations straight away,
Mhm.
right? I heard about a couple the other day that they got married and they were divorced within 2 years or no, it's 6 months. And that's because they got married and then the woman was saying, right, we need to have kids within 2 years. My biological clock's ticking. And the man said, no, I need time. I need at least a few more years before we even think about that. To me, it's surprising they didn't have that conversation before, like they made this big commitment to married life, right? I guess if you're going into an arranged marriage, you know what it's about. It's a partnership. It's a partnership for life. And you build it on that partnership first. Obviously, you get to see a picture, you get to figure out if you're attracted to the other person or not. But lust is fleeting, right? And a partnership where you decide it's you and her against the world.
Well, also with the just a picture, I find some people's photos don't do them justice in terms of the essence of who they are. Like when you meet some people, you look at their photo, like, oh, cool. But then you meet them, they're like more beautiful or more handsome, whatever you want to call it, because like they have like an amazing personality or like they have this energy that can't be captured in the photo. So that's interesting as well. So
And I think look, if you're getting, I got married at 28. My wife was 26. You're still relatively young then, so you grow together as a couple. And if you don't focus on growing together and connecting and thinking how you can help each other grow, then then you're going to grow apart. You either grow together or you grow apart.
also, I think in modern times, in the nature of relationships, not just romantic, but also friendships or family, whatever it is, I think there's this, I don't know, because of social media or like just the culture that's been built. Everyone's kind of not looking at the community. Not when I say community, like how can I serve the other person or other people? It sounds kind of like you're putting off your own needs, but this is my opinion, and I'd love to.
I keep threatening to write a book, and the name of the book is why microwave meals are the cause of the downfall of modern marriage. And my microwave meal theory is that once upon a time you would take time to make a meal, to cook, and you'd spend hours slaving over it, and it would mean something. Whereas if you just put something in the microwave and it's ready in 3 minutes, it doesn't really mean anything. If it tastes horrible, you just throw it in the bin. The same way, when was the last time you saw a TV repair shop?
For
When
sure.
was the last time you got a needle and thread and sewed up the hole in your socks? Just throw the socks away and buy another pair because it's cheap. And the problem is that's a metaphor, but when you start doing something in everyday life, it permeates into your thought process about everything. So if my friend's being difficult, I'll find another friend tomorrow. It's fine. Throw that friend away. And it's permeated into relationships as well, right? Especially in the age of Tinder and so on. You swipe right, swipe left, whatever.
Well, it's
You
the
can
age
find.
of abundance.
It's the age of abundance, but if
This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
someone said to me a couple of months ago at one of our events, that they've got to go and do something. It's important. Well, everything's important. And I said back to her, if everything's important, nothing's important. So if you
Agree.
have access to everything, you do nothing. So it is the age of abundance, but actually, the problem is if it's the age of abundance, everyone's moving on next, 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 and everyone's only looking at the surface. You're not going deep. Everyone then becomes shallow, not in terms of money, but they don't have time to actually contemplate and think about things.
For sure. There's a lot of things. Overscheduling, no room. Like people don't room
We're
to.
all busy, but busy doing what, right? If you can't find the time to sit and actually talk with your spouse, what?
Well, I think people confuse activity with productivity or whatever it is, right? Like just because you're doing something doesn't mean it's actually useful. Uh, we can kind of go into a whole tangent over there, but I think
I
one
was
of the
going to
things,
say,
yeah,
actually,
right?
I once did a time management course, and it's an interesting metaphor. So they had four quadrants. They had not important, important, and they had not urgent and urgent. And what most people end up spending their lives doing is the urgent stuff, whether it's not important or important. They're dealing with urgent stuff. So it's firefighting the immediate things. If and what they were saying was if something's not urgent and not important, throw it in the bin. If something's not important and urgent, it means it's urgent to someone else. But if it's not important to you, then hand it back to them and get them to find someone that it is important to. And the things that are urgent and important, obviously, you've got to deal with. But the things that aren't urgent but important are the strategic things that will actually change your life. But you can only do that when you slow down. My daughter the other day said, I'm bored. And I said to her, that's amazing. And she said to me, what do you mean? That's really bad. I'm bored. I said, but it's only when you're bored you give yourself the time to think, to imagine, to be, to figure out what I want to be, or to write a story or a song, or be creative, or so use that gift. I think we've lost the gift of boredom.
Well, I think I always ask people, you talk about like going deeper or shallow. Like I can't do small talk. I actually went to Romesh Raghunath, the UK comedian Romesh. He did his first show ever in Toronto like a couple days ago. I went, and one of the things he talks about is like the inability of people to kind of have deeper conversations, especially men. Um, so I think about that because like one of the questions I always ask people is, hey, if money wasn't an issue, say hypothetically, okay, like money's not an issue, you had a chance to kind of slow down and like, do nothing, kind of figure yourself out for like 3 to 6 months. Say you got some kind of windfall or some opportunity where you got to do that. Most people are like, their first instinct was to fill that time up. They're like, what did you want to think about more strategically, what to do with your life, etc. No, they're like, oh, I think I would be bored. I wouldn't like that. And for me, I feel like getting those opportunities in your life, especially as you get older, I think you take it for granted when you're a student or like when you have less obligations. But as a parent or like as you get older with more responsibilities, getting a window of time, like say a month, 2, 3 months, where you have less on your plate to really think about what are the next 40 years of my life look like, I think that's like an amazing opportunity. But I find it so interesting. I'm not sure, this is anecdotal, how much people don't like that idea or like feel like they would be bored. And they look at, like you said, boredom as a bad thing when actually boredom is a good thing. And it's missing from a lot of kids' lives these days where I think their parents don't allow them to be bored because they think it's a bad thing, but it's not. So,
But I was going to say, in terms of parents, it's classes, it's this, it's that, our daughter's doing her 11 plus exams right now, but she's learning Buna and she's learning music and she's learning Bharatanatyam. And then when does she have time to just be? And swimming and taekwondo and the list goes on and on and on. I think what Ramesh was talking about more though is emotional depth as opposed to you can sit there and happily, and I often do happily have conversations with your friends about the nature of the universe and books and philosophy and politics and whatever. But how often will you sit with your friend and go, I'm depressed or I'm
yes.
scared I'm not going to be able to pay the mortgage this month or
Yep.
um I feel alone.
Yep.
And
Yep.
there is an epidemic of male loneliness in the world. Saw this great video on TikTok where they had this woman, and the woman was saying to all my queens out there, who's that one woman? Who's your ride or die? It's 2 a.m., everything's gone to crap. Who's that one woman you pick up the phone and call? And then they stitched it together with a bunch of videos from guys. And the first guy said, people call people, and his voice cracks as he's saying it. Like he didn't know this was a concept. And then the next guy said, no one, I'm a man, no one cares. The next one said, I'm not going to tell anyone that stuff, they'll use it against me. And then it just went on and on and on and on. So yeah, maybe as part of creating equity and equality in the world, we need to let women have their place and to have the space and the respect to be able to earn their place. But I think we also need to teach the men, our boys, to be able to be emotionally vulnerable and to deal with their emotions, not just push it down. Because, our dad's generations, definitely our grandfather's generations, didn't have time or the space to have emotions, right? They wouldn't have talked about mental health.
Oh no,
It
for sure.
wasn't a
Like
thing.
I wasn't taught how to foster relationships. Like I mean, you're kind of learning. It's like you're flying the plane as you're kind of building it with friendships. And Scott Galloway, I think you probably know who he is as well. He talks a lot about kind of the death of kind of, or like the dearth of kind of what's happening with males, not in the sense that they're oppressed, but like there is a big issue with younger, like young men, and that will impact everybody, and like it has to be addressed. Like it's like the question you asked about like who are you gonna call at 2 a.m. The equivalent for another question I heard was like, if you see the airport question, like, is there anybody you can call that can to pick you up from the airport or that you would go pick up at the airport? And I think they asked a bunch of men that, and like you said, it was like a very weird, especially like who would pick them up. I think most men are used to kind of trying to be independent or like a provider, etc. That's kind of the message you get, and you're not really taught to rely on others and be dependent and kind of build community because community is built by having a dependency on other people, which requires you to be vulnerable, which again is something that I think a lot of men aren't taught.
I think it's a false dichotomy we've built into human society. I don't think it's in nature,
Hmm.
where boys don't cry, suck it up, man up,
Hmm.
and a lot of the stuff that they're putting out there by Andrew Tate and all of these other false alpha male bros. All of that comes from a piece of research by a guy, and I can't remember the guy's name, but he studied a group of wolves in captivity, and he saw that the alpha male bullied everyone else. He led from the front. He was the strongest in the pack. And then he went out and studied wolves in the wild. And one thing he noticed different was that where do you think the alpha male was in the wild?
Like where in the pack if they were traveling in the back.
In the back.
Yeah.
Because in the captive pack, they were all strangers until they were put together in the zoo or wherever. So he had to fight and cajole and bite everyone to get them to listen because they weren't a cohesive unit. But if you're the father of the pack, which is what the alpha generally is, you make sure everyone keeps up. And if there's an attack from the back, you're there to protect everyone while everyone else gets away. And I actually mentioned this to, I had a meeting with a guy earlier this week, and he's just left the army a few years ago. He was a two-star general in the British Army. And I mentioned that to him, and he immediately said the back, and it's funny you say that because that's built into the army. So this image we've got of real men being bullies and kind of pumped up and jacked up and kind of oppressing everyone else
No, for sure.
isn't what exists in nature.
Well, you refer to Andrew Tate, like a lot of people crap on him and understandably so a lot of the stuff he says, or at least how he delivers it. But there's an underlying truth to some of the stuff he says that resonates with some people. Who he is, how he kind of says it, like all of that, I definitely
So you can,
understand.
you can say the same about
Anything I
I mean
know, yeah.
over here we've got Nigel Farage, obviously Mr. Trump. There was another guy a while ago called Adolf Hitler. The problem is if you find so what Nigel Farage has found is people that feel left behind and disenfranchised because of neoliberalism, how it's changed the world. And there's some people that it's been hugely successful for. There's other people that got left behind because automation. So they're not. They think they're losing their jobs to immigrants and brown people and whatever, but actually, what they're losing their jobs to is outsourcing and automation, and
I
they're
should
not
correct my
keeping.
language. I think I'm not trying to say what he's saying is correct. I'm saying people should look at There's so many people that resonate with
why
what he's
people are willing to listen.
yeah, so there's
And,
something
and,
there.
and
Don't ignore that. Yeah.
no, 100%. And just like, there's certain imams around the world that people are that hungry, disenfranchised young men who feel hated, who feel left behind, are going to listen to people that make them think they've got a reason for that. And unfortunately, if you look again in the wild, when you have a bunch of angry young lions, male lions, left to their own devices, they end up causing lots of trouble, and that's also happens a lot within human society. So I agree with you completely. We should be trying to embrace and find a way to include them in society and not make them feel emasculated or alienated or and not driven to people that are going to take advantage of them, like Andrew Tate, like Nigel Farage,
Well,
like
well, if you look at Donald Trump, the people that voted him in, a lot of them stand to actually lose a lot by voting him in. But because they felt heard by what he was saying, even though underlying all the policies and stuff that they're implementing, like Medicare and like all this stuff that actually benefits them, he wants to get rid of that kind of stuff that will drastically impact their life. But they've all felt ignored or like nobody's listened to them except for him. So that's all I'm saying. I think there's like I think
I
in modern
agree.
society, there's been this big thing I've noticed just with even people I've interacted with, friends, etc., where people think you have to agree on everything, and there's this inability to, even if you stand on opposite sides of like a topic, to have civil discourse and learn from each other and kind of, have conversations about it.
We have lost the art of the fine art of debate. I
Yeah.
agree because people end up in an argument as opposed to having a debate.
Hmm.
At the same time, there is a fable, and it would take too long to. We haven't got enough time for me to go through it. But there's a story about the tiger and the donkey, and the donkey says to the tiger, "The grass is blue," and the tiger says, "No, it's not. It's green." And I'm going to really shorten this down, but they go back and forth, and the tiger goes, "Look, you're wrong. Let's go and ask the lion. He's the king of the animals." So they go and tell the lion, and the lion says, "Donkey, you're right. The grass is blue. Why don't you go away and I'll punish tiger?" And the tiger says, "What? What? Once donkey's left, why are you punishing me? You know the grass is green. I know the grass is green. Why are you agreeing with that guy?" And the lion said, "You're right. I know the grass is green. You know the grass is green. So why are you wasting your time arguing with someone whose mind you're never going to change? And beyond that, why are you wasting my time as well as your time?" And
Yeah.
the problem is, we've all been that tiger on Instagram, on Facebook, arguing with people that you don't even know that doesn't actually matter to you or to the world. No one's going to pay attention beyond a couple of random people scrolling past, liking your comment, and you're giving up time with your family to do that.
Agreed.
So, yes, we should debate, but sometimes you also know when you're not going to change someone's mind. I've just come across a book, I haven't read it yet, but it's called The Let Them Theory. And what it comes down to is you can't change someone else. It takes them to change themselves. Someone's got to make a concerted effort to figure themselves out and change and give themselves change is a scary thing. And if most human beings won't run towards a positive change, they need where they are to be painful enough that it makes them want to move away to the less painful or the more joyous thing. But the bit in the middle between the joyous thing and you is change, which is scary. Because what if this, what if that, what if that?
Yeah. There's like a loss aversion theory with human beings of where they did the experiment with money. And it's like, oh, if you did this, you could potentially make $50. But if you do this, you're gonna definitely lose $50. Or like it was basically like a disproportionate amount they could make more, like maybe it was $1,000 by doing something, but it wasn't certain. And there was an action where they could, definitely lose $50. So like there was a big number of difference between the two. And most people gravitated towards a choice where they didn't want to
A
lose
little bit of
something
pain.
versus do the thing that it could have been very small to get the big positive result in their life. So yeah, I agree. Human beings are okay with the status quo and they'd rather not lose whatever they have versus something small or action or whatever is required to make a big, meaningful change in their life, which is why people don't do a lot of things to like say, you know, improve their lives, whatever that looks like. Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
The whole point with the let them theory is you can't change them, so let them be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not making effort, let them not make any effort, and understand who they truly are. And then on the basis of knowing who they truly are, then you decide what your relationship is with them. If you
Agreed.
build your relationship based on no, I can change them, no, I can make them proud of me, I can make them want to hang out with me, I can whatever, you're going to end up disappointed and spending a lot of time.
Agreed. Well, this is,
We've
I feel
gone
like we
way
should,
off tangent.
oh, well, I feel like me and you should do like a separate podcast, just me and you just ranting about all these different topics. But
The world's all right, 100%.
well, why don't we kind of get into, I guess, first of all, I guess your work at Charles Square, and I guess we'll start off very briefly with, like, very quickly, just because of time, I guess, what you do at Charles Square and like just your long and extensive career in sales. As someone that's kind of been in that space myself, I'm always fascinated by somebody in the Tamil community doing it because it's not an easy type of job, and to be doing it for a long period of time and doing it well, I think requires a certain level of skill. And just talk about that. Like, how did you get into sales? What made you kind of stay? And yeah, what do you do? Like, what do you do
I
at
think
Square?
going back to what you mentioned about teenage times, I think I've always just got on with people, and I was the guy that got on with pretty much everyone in my year at school. I got on with the skinheads, and I got on with the Asians, and I got on with, like, literally with everyone. Um, and so I probably naturally fell into sales. But what I do now isn't sales. I'm a business development director. The thing is, everyone hates salespeople, so they've been trying to hide who they are for years. So they became business development managers, then they became, commercial director, and then chief growth officer, and then client experience officer. But sales is kind of banging out an activity, it's pushing something on someone, and then next, 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 next. The difference between sales and business development is about relationships, it's about a network. It sits between sales, marketing, and new product development. But it is spreading word and then getting business through word of mouth and through introductions. So I would say a business development person's conversion ratios tend to be quite a bit higher than a salesperson's. But then at the same time, their pipeline's going to be smaller because you don't get that level of opportunity. I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is understanding another human being, understanding another human's needs, and figuring out how you can articulate what you do in a way that they understand. So most people, they're not self-centered, but they are self-centric. So most people's worldview is based around them, what's happened to them in their childhood, and what happened to them last week or this morning on the way to work. And their worldview is on that. And if you explain to them why it's really important to you, they're not going to get it. If you say we've just invented this brand new widget for our software tool, they're going to look at you and go, okay, but why should I care?
Yep. Yeah.
And the answer is they shouldn't care. You should be able to articulate in a way that an 8-year-old can understand, that actually understands what's important to them. If you sell someone something they don't need, you're a con man. You're not a salesperson, in my opinion. And therefore, it's just about understanding the other person. And I think I just naturally ended up in sales, and unlike most people that get stuck in sales, I actually quite liked it, and I have a passion for it. It's basically just hanging out and meeting people and kind of understanding what they need. And I also end up being a connector. I introduce people to other people all the time, and that then yields back to me. But you should always do good because you want to do it. because that's the reward, not because you expect something back. And it's the same with introductions. You should always introduce two people to each other because it makes sense to introduce those two people to each other. And it's a win-win scenario, not because you expect to get something back. At the same time, I mean, it's in every single religion in the world. I mean, in Hinduism, it's called karma. In Christianity, do unto others as you would have done to you. But sorry, in Christianity, it's you reap what you sow and so on. So what you put out into the world will come back to you. And it doesn't need to be in any kind of woo-woo basis, bless you. If you help 1,000 people, there's a law called the law of reciprocation, and society and tribal beings are built on that law. If you give someone something, they intrinsically want to give you something back. They want to pay you back. If your barn burns down and all your neighbors come round and help you put up a new barn, when their barn burns down, you go around and do the same. That's how society works. And then Charles Square. So it goes back to that network effect. I've known the guys at Charles Square since probably 2016 or 17. I passed them business and they passed me business for a number of years. When I got to the point where the company I was working at the time had been bought by a new owner, and the new owner didn't quite get the kind of relationships and the way we dealt with clients. I started reaching out to my contacts, and one of them was Charles Square, and they said, actually, we've been saying we need someone like you internally. So if we can have you, it would make the most sense. Can we have a chat? And we had a chat, and that I joined them in April 2021. In terms of what they do, they were the internal IT team for an $8 billion asset manager. They spun out and outsourced themselves back to their employer. It's quite comical because I always rolled my eyes at Asian people in IT. Uh, but yeah, it's an IT services company that's predominantly focused on looking after the network infrastructure for hedge funds, for family offices, private equity firms, sovereign wealth funds, etc. So we look after the infrastructure, IT support 24/7, 365, white glove service, 5-star service. And when we say that, we genuinely mean it. We train our guys up on the mindset of delivering that in actuality, to the extent that when everyone joins Charles Square, they've got to go through a training course, and the first half of it has nothing to do with technology, everything to do with the mindset of working with our clients. When they told me you need to have the Mayfair hotel mindset, not the travel lodge mindset, I said that's nice, but my friend happens to manage it. Why don't we ask him what that actually is? So we got him to do us a video about the 5-star, what it takes to deliver 5-star service and the mindset required. And then when they said white glove service, I had a friend who used to be a butler at Buckingham Palace. So he did us a video about what white glove service really means and what it takes to deliver that. And then I went a bit crazy, and we've got about 15 or 20 different videos of people who deliver various different services to billionaires and hedge fund managers and so on. And we've got bespoke jewelers, we've got matchmakers for billionaires, we've got tailors. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And you're probably looking at me, and some other people look at me and think, but what's this got to do with IT? It's got nothing to do with IT. It's got everything to do with the mindset you need to deliver it. It doesn't matter what it is you're delivering. To deliver at that level, you need to be able to understand the client. It's about paying attention to the little things. It's about going above and beyond. It's about maintaining that trust. So if you say you're going to ring someone in an hour, at an hour and 50 in 57 minutes, you're ringing them, even if all you're saying is, I'm still chasing this, I'm still working on your behalf, I'll be back to you in another hour, but I've got you.
Yeah, it's the principles sound very similar to a book called, I think it's called Extreme Hospitality.
I've heard
Uh
of that one.
yeah.
And I think there's another one called Delivering Happiness that I've been
Well,
told about as well.
yeah, and I think I don't know if the founder of Airbnb talks about it as well, but they have this process they go through, kind of what does a 5-star experience look like? Then it's like, oh, what does a 6-star look, 7-star, 8-star, and it kind of just really pushing the boundaries of what really good customer service or experience could look like. So it sounds like that's kind of similar. I mean,
Once you go to 90% of what a five-star hotel has, a four-star hotel has.
Hmm.
The last 10% is all about the experience.
Yeah.
And the problem is with the world, we talked about microwave meals. Now I'm going to talk about SLAs and KPIs. Is the problem with all of those things is they can be gamed really easily.
Hmm.
And if you focus on metrics, you forget people. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you've technically fixed an issue. If the person can't do what they want to do, if they don't feel happy about the fact that they've had something resolved,
Hmm.
then you may as well not have done it. User experience very different to tick boxing SLAs and closing tickets down.
Agreed. I want to segue into, because you brought up, you said the Mayfair Hotel. So a good
Mm.
segue into Mayfair Collective. So I guess maybe tell people what is the Mayfair Collective and how does it work? And you have things like ambassadors and very, when you described it to me, it sounded like this amazing thing that you do, which connects people. It's a real true community. You have accountability. Like I just like it, but I put it in your own words because I'm very bad at
Okay.
describing things. So.
I'm going to shorten a bit versus what I told you the other day because obviously time. But so Mayfair Collective is I hate the word networking group because it's been used wrongly by the wrong people for so long. Um, but basically, it's kind of had two incarnations. The first incarnation we started in 2016. I brought a bunch of people together. We started running networking drinks events, but it was based on the fact that I think I'd gone to 101 events that year, and they'd all kind of gone to circle around that many events. And we looked at what we liked, what we didn't like about events, and created a key focus. And between the November 16 and February 2020, we ran 23 different networking drinks events. We had 1,000 individual people turn up to those drinks over that period. Then COVID happened. We went into lockdown. What we did didn't really work over Zoom. And the second incarnation, which is kind of what we're renowned for now, started because I joined Charles Square and I was trying to get word out about what I was up to. And at the end of COVID in the UK, after our third lockdown, we had this thing called the Rule of Six, which meant you could only meet five other people at the same time because somehow that would stem the spread of COVID.
Hmm.
Um, so I listened to the rules and I actually ended up running something like 60 lunches in 2021, of which 16 were very focused on bringing together people who worked with ultra high net worth family offices, royal families, or celebrities. And at first, I was just calling them lunch because it was just me and five friends having lunch. Um, but yeah, as restrictions loosened up, a friend of mine said, you should really give these a name. They're becoming quite popular. People want to talk about them. And so I thought, well, I've already got Mayfair Collective brand. I'll just call it Mayfair Collective Lunches, move on, forget about it. Um, and the one thing that always kind of drew me in terms of networking, but it kind of lost its way over years, is networking used to be about people connecting and making friends and building long-term relationships and figuring out how they can help each other. And what networking had become is rooms full of people who would behave like YouTube pop-up ads.
Hmm.
They would come into the middle of your conversation, they'd broadcast at you what they do, and they would flick a card at you like they're a ninja. And they'd take your card, and then they'd say, I've got to go and meet the rest of the room. It's great meeting you guys. And the problem is, if you try and connect with everyone, it goes back to if everything's important, nothing's important. If you try and connect with everyone, you've connected with no one. And most people don't even follow up on all those cards they got. So the whole point with these lunches was you don't need just don't focus on meeting everyone in the room, meet the other five people on the table. But anyway, as restrictions loosened up, one table of six became two, became three, became four, and at that point, pretty obvious realization. I realized I couldn't be on every single table, and I couldn't control the quality of the conversation on every table. So I asked over a period of 3 to 6 months, probably 20, 25 friends of mine that I knew, liked, and trusted to be ambassadors. We've now probably got close to 30. Their job, pretty simple, turn up to a lunch, um, to turn up to one lunch in four, to bring guests, because only they and I are allowed to bring guests.
Money can be hard to come by, but here is a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
Everyone else who has a friend that they think might fit Mayfair Collective, they have to introduce them to me, and I have a conversation with them, find out about them to make sure they fit the criteria, fit the community, fit the ethos. And then during lunch, they head up a table and make sure no one was bored, boring, or boorish. So boring, they're sat there talking about work, they're not engaging. Bored, they're sat there looking at their phone, they're not engaging. And it might be because they don't get it, and that's fine, they don't need to come back, but it might be something else is going on in their life. So why not stop and find out what? And there's been multiple occasions at the lunches where we've stopped and found out why, and it's because something's going wrong at work or at home or whatever. And occasionally we've had other people in the room that we could pull over to the table and say, right, well, if you're going through that, speak to this person, speak to that person, speak to that person. Let's see what we can do to help you. Because if you can help someone, it takes you a little bit of effort. Why wouldn't you? But if you can do good while having a good time, it's a no-brainer. And then boorish, we're lucky enough half our attendees are women, and we want to keep it that way. So we are very careful to stamp out bigotry of any kind at our lunches. At the same time, everyone that comes to lunch has to fit the criteria. So we've got to work directly with ultra high net worth family offices, royal family celebrities. They've got to be well established in what they do and capable of delivering it to the highest levels. And finally, they've got to be well connected before they turn up, because we don't charge a membership. We don't have any sponsors. We don't make any money out of the price of lunch. Everyone pays for their own share of lunch. But actually, the price we're getting out of Gordon Ramsay or various other restaurant groups in Mayfair, which is like the most expensive part of London to go out in or do anything in, really, is much more reasonable than they can get off their own bat. And therefore, everyone has to be capable of adding value. Otherwise, there's no point in them coming. So once we've done that, we're left with the nice people who are well connected, who work with the right clients, who more importantly have the right ethics, ethos, and morals. It's about looking after your client's best interests. It's about delivering value for money. It's about going above and beyond, and creating trust and integrity. Once we've got those people, we tell them to come to lunch thinking we, not me, which is particularly important in this age when everyone is so me, 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 me. If you think how you can help everyone else is thinking the same. We elevate together.
I love it. Would I get in? Just kidding. Hello? Well, looks like you're frozen. Yes, I can hear
You might have hit your time limit.
that. Oh, no. I think, well, I'm on a paid plan, so I don't think that was the issue. Maybe it was some other issue. But I guess for the sake of time as well, maybe if you want to kind of sum up
I'll wrap up the
Mayfair
Mayfair Collective bit.
Collective. Yes, exactly.
I was just going to say next. So, yeah, we tell everyone to come thinking we, not me, because everyone's got to focus on how they can help each other. But more importantly, we tell everyone to explain what they do in 3 words or less, and then they're not allowed to talk about work for the rest of lunch. Because regardless of what you do, there's 1,000 other people in the world doing exactly the same thing. And the difference between all of them and you is the fact that you're you. So why waste time over lunch talking about work when you can figure out, do I like this person? Do I trust them? Do I want to hang out with them for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of my life? And will they be my friend? And if the answer is yes, then you'll figure out a way to help each other. There's people who've helped each other through bereavement and celebrated each other's wins. There's people that have keys to each other's houses and go on holiday to each other with each other and call each other's mom's mama and so many other things. And have invited each other to talk on each other's podcasts and various other things. So our shortest lunch has been 5.5 hours. Our longest was 11 and a half. The furthest anyone travelled to join us for lunch was from New Zealand, which is about as far as you can get from the UK. And he came over 3 times last year to join us for lunch. Second furthest was Australia, Hong Kong, Buenos Aires, Beverly Hills, New York. I think we had a guy from Toronto as well, Abu Dhabi, Singapore, Malaysia. I mean, the list just goes on, and from across Europe and across the UK. And the shortest distance was from Davies Street in Mayfair to Grosvenor Square, which is about a 30-meter walk. Because he lives on Davies Street. It's just about bringing the right people together to connect, to make friends, to help each other. And then off the back of that, we've got a community of WhatsApp groups with over 400 people in, doing a variety of different things, but the main group's called client requests, and it's literally just there to say, I've got a client that needs help with, can someone advise, can someone help, can someone recommend? And it's anything from Saudi client trying to get their kid into UCL and LSE, and the university's not being responsive to clients bought a bigger yacht and they need someone to help manage it and find new moorings for it and whatever. To my favorite request was someone saying, my clients just moved to the UK from Spain. They want to know where to take their kid trick or treating. No one's making any money out of that. But 8 people came in and go, you need to go to this street and you need to go to that street. It's just all about helping each other, helping each other's clients, and as I say, creating that sense of community. So we run 20 lunches a year, I think 11 drinks. We have a Christmas party last year where we had 332 people at. And last year we had probably 1100 in probably 1100 to 1500 attendees across lunches and drinks, but probably about 500 600 individual people came to lunch and drinks over the last year from
Mm.
across the world. So yeah, and then we've last thing to mention is we got fed up of turning people away that had the right mindset, that were the right kind of people, but weren't well established enough and weren't well connected enough. So we've just started our Rising Stars initiative to train up the next generation of people that will work with kind of ultra high net worth clients and teach them about all the stuff we wish we'd known 20 years ago.
Mm. Well, usually I do a couple more questions, but I think for the sake of time, I want to get in the speed round. So in this case, we'll make it a real speed round. It's a fun game I like to call Creator Confessions. I'm going to basically say a bunch of statements, and you will tell me the first thing that pops to mind. Ready, Siv? Favorite Tamil food?
The sambal and omelette.
If there's a fire flood and you have only time to take 2 things with you, can't be people, what are they?
Well, that's a hard one. Ah, probably photo albums actually, because you're never going to be able to replace them. Books, anything else you can replace, but your photos from your childhood, etc., you can't.
A good
And
one.
probably my phone because it's got photos of my kids in it, but that's all backed up to the cloud.
Something that scares you.
Very much worked on most things. I can't think of anything that scares me really.
Good thing. What's an insecurity that you have?
I mean, I've done it, but I hate public speaking
Mm.
in front of large crowds. I mean, I've spoken at my brother's wedding with like 400 people, and I've spoken at my cousin's wedding with about 400 people, but it's not something I rush towards. Uh, and probably insecurity about weight as well.
Favorite TV show you're watching?
Oh. My favorite one recently has been Cobra Kai.
Oh, right.
And the reason is it changed the dynamics of TV shows. Before that, TV shows were episodic, but every episode was the same thing with a slightly different dynamic to it, with an overarching big baddie and whatever else. But what Cobra Kai, and especially the first season that was on YouTube, did was it created a movie, but that was made up. They basically took a like 6 hour, 8 hour movie and made it into episodes. Which, being Tamil, obviously, we're used to movies that long.
Mm.
But in the West, like if you're over an hour and 20 minutes, then like, barely anyone's going to watch you. So what they did was, and actually since then, you've seen things like they remade Percy Jackson, but they made it 13 episodes, not a movie. And I think they're doing the same with Harry Potter and a bunch of other stuff, the Jackal being one. So it actually allows it to be more true to the book version, if there is one, and go into more depth.
A place you're itching to travel to.
Um, I mean, there's so many. Uh, Athens.
A fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to.
What do you mean by creator?
Anybody that creates, it's meant to be a very broad term from my perspective.
I mean, I've got a lot of love for Anirudh right now, in terms of his music.
Sorry, who did you say?
Uh, Anirudh,
Oh, Anirudh. Okay, yes, got it. Um,
he's pushing the dynamics of Tamil music,
yeah.
bringing a mix of Western music into it. And Sid Sri Ram, actually,
Favorite childhood memory?
another hard one. I think probably, if you're talking like truly kind of childhood, I vaguely remember uh, sitting on a wagon, Martavandi, with my grandfather going to temple, and he'd ride the oxen to go there. And then I vaguely remember, it still sticks out in my mind, this bright red insect, and I think they call it velvet poochie. Uh, I remember that a lot, but I mean the other favorite memory, whilst I hated working in an allotment, would be hanging out at the allotment or at Tamil school with my cousins and getting to spend time with them.
What's a decision you've been putting off for a while?
Again, I can't think of one.
What's a purchase you've made that you've splurged on recently in the last couple of years that you have no regret about?
I mean, I don't know if it's splurging, but I used to play flute, the Indian classical flute when I was younger, and took it back up a little bit during COVID. So last time we were over in India last year, I actually started buying out a whole set of flutes, which since we've had my son, haven't had much time to practice, if I'm honest. But
If you, oh,
the reason that one was quite hard to answer is I don't think you should regret anything you've done because you can't change it.
I agree with you. Pet peeve of yours.
I mean, people that turn up to networking events and behave like YouTube pop-up ads.
If you,
And people that throw around the word white glove without really understanding it. I said to one of my bosses, you can say we deliver great service, but really, does anyone ever say we've got crap service, but we're cheap, come and use us? Everyone else says we've got great services.
if you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, a regret that you would have.
I can't think of any because I think my father passed away in 2019 and he was lucky enough he got 3 or 4 days before he knew he was going to pass away. So I mean I watched him eat all the food he wanted to eat. The nurses and doctors, actually the doctor that told us, my dad used to tutor him as a kid. So I had to console the doctor a little bit as he was telling us, he's got 3 or 4 days left. They told us anyone that wants to see him, tell them. So we had a queue of 60 people or whatever that night outside the ICU. So yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, if you're gonna die tomorrow, what are you gonna regret? Not spending enough time, not spending enough time with the people you love.
What's a book you've read or a podcast you've listened to that's had an impact on you?
I mean, I think everything you listen to, read, or if you're willing to look deep enough, will have an impact on you. I think I told you last time we spoke about a book I'm reading with my daughter called The Daily Stoic, which has a quote from different Stoic philosophers with description, which is a bit heavy for a 10-year-old. But at the same time, we were listening to Taylor Swift, and I asked her, "Do you know what this song means?" And we were talking about "Shake It Out." And the first few lines about I stay out too late, I've got nothing in my brain, I go on too many dates but I can't make them stay, they were actual newspaper articles written about her. And what she's saying next is but I keep on moving, I keep on grooving, and it's like there's music going on in my head saying it's going to be okay. And then pointed out to her that what she's saying is there's always going to be people that are going to hate what you do regardless what you do. And if you think something is right, then you should carry on doing it until you find your tribe, the people that will actually appreciate what you're doing and follow it. Um, but often the right thing, the good thing, isn't the easy thing. It's usually the hard thing. You should still do it. So what I'm saying is you can be moved and inspired by anything. I have to say one of the most inspiring books I've read, full stop, Probably the only book that I couldn't listen to and drive at the same time was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Hmm. Which the Daily Stoic pulls a lot of, I know.
Yeah.
And finally, the last question here is, what's the piece of advice that you would want to give your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Um, I think I'd probably have to pull from Marcus Aurelius and say, kindness is invincible if delivered without hypocrisy or vested interests. So whilst we're all out there trying to drive, and there's a lot to be said with, hustle culture, which ends up being quite toxic. Um, if instead of trying to pull up the ladder behind you, you try and help those behind you up. If instead of trying to outdo everyone else, we look at how we can help each other. It's the way we should try and be, and elevate, and it will come back to you.
I love it. Well, that's kind of a good way to end off podcast. I think the last time I spoke to you, I think I said this to you, and I think even more so now. I feel like I think of the a commercial, the most interesting man in the world. I think you're that guy. Very. I feel like I could probably talk to you for more than what I allotted for this our conversation here. I'm sure we'll stay connected. But for somebody
I think
kind of
my lunches last 11 and a half hours.
I can understand. No, I got to come to one of these lunches, so we'll see if you'll let me come just to experience it. But
Hey, next
I
time you're in London, let me know.
but I guess for people listening that have been interested, motivated, inspired, whatever the case might be by this conversation, what is the best way for someone to reach out to you?
I mean, they can reach out via the Mayfair Collective website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. It's all
Awesome,
Siv Sivasamy.
awesome. Well, I'll share that information. And for all of you listening, as always, appreciate you guys doing that and sharing feedback, insights, etc. On to the next episode. And thanks again, Sid, for jumping on.
Thank you.